Good afternoon, everyone. So, I'm going to endeavour to do a stream. I'm not at all confident my computer's up to it. My computer's just been an absolute shit show. I thought I was doing a good thing by getting a new computer um, from Lenovo, and apparently I wasn't because the second computer is now worse than the first one was, even though it's apparently the same spec. Um, so we'll give it a go. I'm recording it, and if all fails, I'm going to have to record a video later, and but we'll see how we go. Please let me know in chat or whatever if there's any drama from your end with sound or anything like that. I thought I'd start on EXO. Oh no, that's not even EXO charts. On EXO charts, here we go. Because um, mainly because this doesn't load if I tend to do it during the stream. And also just because it was quite useful yesterday. So I'm not sure how much useful information I'm going to give today as far as entries go. However, um, yeah, I'll just have to think through what's going on with the market and that sort of stuff. So yeah, just to start with on EXO charts. So yesterday, what we saw, this is Binance futures. We saw a lot of longs going in, but not on this run up, the first run up. That actually started kind of after the run up, after the breakout. So there are a lot of breakout traders going in here. So that's to be aware of because then stops are going to be in this, what's that, 106.5 area, and obviously there's going to be underneath um, those levels as well, but particularly the 106.5 because of those longs that all went in. At the same time, there were a lot of shorts going in. And I think initially, I'll check the chart in a minute, but I was looking for possibility of a rejection around here, which was 3-day supply, the upper 3-day supply, and then slightly lower than this, which was 12-hour supply inside the 3-day. Um, but what I wanted to kind of point out was that one thing I was saying in the group that while you can look at those levels like that, and obviously you're looking only for structure changes, and you can quite clearly see here there wasn't any structure change even on the 15-minute chart to really enter a short in. What you also want to see is shorts getting stopped out. If shorts are running high as prices going up, you want to see them getting stopped out. And on this second run, on well, at least from New York to what's that, 9 o'clock GMT. It was only at like 10 o'clock that we got that final pump, but you can see we had this slow grind up, but shorts weren't closing. So it was almost inevitable we were going to get this final last big push before potentially correcting or dropping. And obviously we can short squeeze and break out at that point as well, but it kind of like lended credence to the don't short yet um, idea. Then on top of that, obviously, like I said, you've got all these longs going in. So now we know we've got longs and we've got stop losses below, which those are still high. So it was only on that last pump that we can see here, that shorts kind of dropped out, and now we've had a bunch more go back in. And this is just sideways, so this is okay. But particularly if I see a big push like this whilst price is going up, then people are getting very trapped. So there's a lot of people who got, they started kind of running in that section and they didn't really drop out. There was a small drop on this correction in New York, but then it just kept pushing from there. Um, so just going to keep an eye on my Telegram in case I get any comments about problems with the stream or anything like that. Um, anyway, so obviously now we're starting to have the correction finally. The other thing of note was, this is what I was looking at when I first started, was this is coinalized data and this the CVDs. So what we can see is again on this last run we had, this is the Coinbase CVD was very much dropping and then just flat, so there wasn't really much Coinbase activity going on. Then we did have what appeared to be some buying going in on Binance Spot, which you can see again, this is a 15-minute time frame. So that was supporting the up move on Spot and then on futures. And then as part of the reason I looked at the EXO chart, so the EXO chart is paid data, but this is free data. But what you could see here obviously was this massive rise in OI on that pump yesterday. And obviously you don't know whether that's going to be predominantly net longs or net shorts going in. You can make some judgments based on what the CVDs are doing. But because also, like as we saw on Binance, and it was the same, I should say, it was the same on Bybit stablecoin margined contracts. The coin margin contracts, the ones that against BTC, the inverse contracts weren't as foolish, should I say. I mean, you can see that the OI is pretty much sideways, but it was really the stable coin, so both on Bybit and Binance, that were really pushing in longs and shorts. And I think Bybit at least got out a little bit earlier. I think Bybit didn't get quite so screwed on the last pump, but Binance obviously very much did. But anyway, if I zoom out a little bit on this, what you can also see is that while it does look like, Binance is supporting this up move, it's still very divergent from when we were previously at these levels. So zooming even further out, you can see, I mean, really the CVD is just going down while we're going back up again. And that it's really futures is the one that's pushing. And even that, the volumes, let me see if I can put this on the 4-hour, the volumes are significantly lower than they were back, when's that, December. And then, if we can go all the way back to December last year, or even back, from May last month, or not even a month, a few weeks ago, when we were having that, we had that fall and the CVD really fell off. It hasn't really come back up, not anywhere near to where it was previously on any of spot or futures. So that's not ideal for sustainability of price. The difficulty we have, though, is that possibly OTC ETFs, hi Aussie man, possibly OTC ETFs are driving some of that. So I don't know if I see all the data on the coinalized chart. But again, so in the last week or so, this has been very up and down. We had a lot of buying from BlackRock at the end of May, but then we had some selling, and now it's sort of buy, sell, depending on the day. Yesterday we had a bit more buying, but the day before BlackRock was a bit of selling, and a lot more selling on the 5th. Sorry, this is last weekend, from across the board, all the ETFs. So again, it's a little bit hard to judge, but I mean, what I'm really seeing is that the data isn't particularly supporting an up move. Is audio low, or is it just you? I don't know. Turn your volume up. My mic's on maximum, but maybe I'm not talking loud enough. How low are we talking? Is it hearable? Let me just check whether you can hear me. I'm going to have to continue, but yeah, let me know if it's not hearable, but turn your volume up and see. I don't know, I haven't changed anything, but my computer is a complete shit show, so it is entirely possible my computer is hating me. But my mic is on maximum on OBS, so there's nothing more I can do other than, I don't know, get a new microphone. Anyway, I'm recording at this time, as I said earlier, so hopefully if there's any problem, I can upload a video later and enhance the volume. Fingers crossed. So anyway, yeah, back to this. So what I'm really seeing, I guess, is the data is a bit hit and miss, but it doesn't really seem to be supporting this current up move. But obviously that doesn't mean it can't continue, but it just means just be a little bit wary, as always. Then going to the chart, which hopefully is going to load. Yeah. So the chart's just basically a mess from my perspective. Has been a bit of a mess. So yes, last week obviously we had the sort of bigger breakdown, which took out the low of the range. This is the 5-day chart. I'll take my stuff off just so you can see. But so we got a close yesterday over the 5-day level, but obviously it's not the strongest close. That's on the 5-day chart, so that's the highest. Okay, speakers, it's low on max. Even okay. Okay, well at least it's fine with earphones. I guess that's good, but I don't know. I will have to investigate afterwards. But there's nothing I can do now on the immediate, unless I can do something here. But I really know nothing about these things, if you hadn't gathered. There's no microphone there, so more volume settings, I don't know. But yeah, thanks for letting me know. Yeah, okay, so the 5-day we closed just above. The 4-day we've closed above as well, and the level's a little bit lower. And that level aligns with what we're still in 3-day supply. So this was what I wanted to look for shorts in. But it makes it, yeah, it's just a challenging structure on those lower time frames right now. So obviously in the bigger picture, we're in an uptrend, and but we're at resistance, and we are at the possibility where we could make a double top and reject. So as you can see, like the chart's sort of rather messy around here. I kind of all my crosses are black, so you can't really tell which are in which direction. But it hasn't been the easiest trading zone. So as I mentioned earlier, I had a short entry up here, which I think I probably talked about in the previous stream, which I think just missed. I think that had just hit around the time I did the previous stream. Then we came back down into this area. I was wary of the stops below there, and we got a little bounce. Unfortunately, we didn't get a bounce up to here, which is where I would have looked to short before the big drop on Thursday. And then Friday, we got a rebound. We had a 3-day supply in here and a 3-day supply above untested. So I actually wasn't looking for shorts in this 3-day because I thought there was too high a chance for it to go up to this section. Is Ether just ranging or preparing to break out? I'll get to Ether, but I'm not sure. But again, like I really am, even for me, quite indecisive on the market at the moment. So anyway, yeah, we've rejected here in this 3-day supply. We came up higher inside it. We came almost to the top of this 12-hour without quite taking out those high with that high, which I know is what everybody will be looking for. And then also there was I think a 1 hour or a 30-minute above here that hasn't quite been tested yet that I was hoping for next. You can see I've got the alert there that I was hoping for another entry. I think just matching where this previous entry was. So again, if we do come back up, you can look for shorts here, but obviously know that we're in a kind of an uptrend scenario and isn't necessarily going to reject there. I think maybe on my lower time frame chart, I was looking at where the 113 would be if we break out again. So again, just to reiterate, I always look at where the 113 extension is, because if we're going to do a failed wave, then we can quite often reject in that area, and we had it here on the lower time frame, and I think we had it there, or maybe it didn't quite make it, I'm not sure. But let me mark that out. So I normally mark out from the 113 to the 127. So that would be the lower time frame, 113 to the 127. And then I had these larger boxes, one is log and one is linear, for the 113 to the 127 based on the massive wave. So if we do get a breakout, obviously the overlap of those boxes is kind of around probably the 115 mark, which would be a fairly nice even number. So just keep an eye there if we do kind of continue to go higher. And I've seen a lot of people on this, they're looking at the very high time frames, and I haven't done enough on this, and sort of saying that, when we break out of a high like here, for example, that we're in this type of situation here, this was consolidating underneath the 2017 all-time high and then took off, and a lot of people are likening this to that scenario, or similarly here, that we consolidated underneath a lot longer here, but underneath that all-time high and then broke out. So a lot of people are saying, oh, we're consolidating now at all-time high, so we're just going to break out. And when I look at the chart at this, on this scale, obviously this is a very, very small consolidation in the grand scheme of things, and could just as easily be this for another massive up move to 500k, like some people are calling, versus a kind of corrective reversal. And it's pretty hard to judge. On the real bullish and the positive side is, we had that test on the 2-month. We came just off the top of that 2-month demand there. So that's essentially played out by taking out the high. Then we also closed above this monthly candle. So again, perhaps this is picking up that monthly support and is going to push. So from the very high time frame perspectives, this could still potentially be very bullish. But obviously I'm not trading quite so high time frame. I like to know where the zones are as and when they're hit. But here we're looking at the local range. If we break above, what's that, 112, exactly 112,000, and then consolidate there, then potentially we're looking for that other next move higher. And then, like I say, the lower time frames are just more challenging. So, the 5-day, we've got that close above. At the moment, I've still got that 3-day supply in there because we're still in it, but then we have potentially flipped levels. So it's kind of a bit hard to judge. We didn't quite flip the 3-day, and it's also made a 2-day in here. But again, this is weak demand until we see a break of the high. So yeah, there's just a few things to look for anyway. Probably not much more to say on that. So yeah, and I haven't thought through about whether I actually want to put a long entry in here or not. And what I'm really seeing, is a lot of the price is kind of, is running the full extent of the range. And, we saw a lot of that in this previous consolidation. Here, and then also in the much bigger 6-month one here, that while we were getting rejections mid-range, we were essentially running full range to create the flag before the breakout. So it just concerns me a bit putting mid-level entries in here if we're potentially going to run a full range. So, now is this still going to do a larger consolidation? Sorry, that went a bit higher, but lower high there, like this, like we've had previously. Managed to capture long at the 102s, going to gamble and let it run to new highs, hopefully, even though there is some bearish signs. 102s. Well, yeah, I mean, if you're in at the bottom, then there is nothing wrong with holding in the hope that it's going to make some new highs, depending on if you're an investor. If you're a trader, you might want to take half profit in case it does, come back to your entry. But, really, when I look back at previous patterns as well, I'm seeing very much, it could go either way type thing. I think I was looking, for example, where was I looking? Maybe it was just even in here. No, it wasn't this. Not too low time frames. It's kind of the daily. I think I was looking at this, for example. It is possible we're doing something similar to that, and that we're, we had this very small, so this was similar here. I think it had a weekly supply in the middle and it came up into it, but really just consolidated sideways, didn't really give a decent drop off that weekly before just taking off. So, in a similar scenario now, we had a small consolidation around where the 3-day supply is based on current PA, but then like this did barely got any rejection, or it might have got a low time frame rejection, but didn't get much here before just running straight through. So it is possible we get a similar scenario here, that it's come up, it's consolidated really not for very long at all in that 3-day here, and then pushed up higher. So it is possible it breaks out from here, but then there's other structures that you can see probably through here or many places where you look where we go, okay, lower high. So this doesn't, because I'm putting short entries in, doesn't necessarily mean I'm bearish. It's because I'm looking at trades on this rather than I think this is going to drop and go to 0, or even 90k. But beyond that, I haven't changed anything like from the entries I've talked about previously. I would still be, the various things. So as I talked about with the ether structure, for example, in that double top, obviously then if we come back down into this 2-month and then the weekly demand in there, if this is a double top, then that's weak demand, and then potentially we're going to run all the way through it. Excuse me, that happens sometimes. And then also here, we've left some CME gaps. So we had a CME gap that was left on the weekend down here. We had one that was left last night, which has probably been filled by now. And then, this one significantly lower. So I've still got a potential question mark entry there if we were to come down and take out the stops from this last consolidation. So yeah, we'll see. On the Confluence front, so the Confluence really is worth watching. So when you've got, so as I've said, that we had data that was telling us not to short too early on this because of the shorts that were going in. But similarly, we had, at this point, the career pair hadn't even hit 3-day supply. So, but it's now come up through to the 3-day supply. But again, while this has run deep inside and, potentially looked like it wanted to stop on the high, but it didn't, at least on the BitMEX chart. I don't know if it has on other charts. Korea has had a perfect sort of stop at the 3-day level. Similarly, US dollar dominance come down into 3-day or into sort of 12-hour or 8-hour demand inside the 3-day there. Now I made a 2-day supply above. So again, we're going to have to see what happens when we get the test here and the test there. And I still, even with dominance, I still remain kind of indecisive. I would have liked for this wick to come up into there, but it didn't quite get high enough. And then similarly, I would have liked the low to come down into here, but again, it hasn't quite got there. So it makes it just a bit difficult to know, is this going to do another push up here to then come into proper supply up here, or is this going to, is it just hasn't got strength to get to that supply because it hasn't properly hit demand, and therefore it's actually going to drift down into demand before pushing up. And again, we're kind of in a mid-range scenario here. We had a bounce, we had a lower high, we're still in lower highs, but back in the mid-range, is this going to retrace to the bottom of the range before it wants to go anywhere? So yeah, I think there's not much more to say there. Again, we just need to say, yeah, we closed the CME gap from last night, and then we still got that lower one. So CME, probably put my try and remember the code for not that code for getting my mouse highlighter on. No, it doesn't want to work, or I'm getting the code wrong, one of the two. Anyway, so where was I? Yeah, so CME again has just stopped. You know, it's in a daily supply here. So the other thing actually I did mention previously is that you know I kind of while the US dollar pair had 3 day and Korea had 3 day supply, CME only ever had a daily supply. So again, it's sort of a weaker sell structure than the US dollar pair anyway. But again, also has closed above the monthly level. So monthly is a bit messy on this. It's got a monthly potentially there. Um, and then I've actually drawn it off the red candle, so the actual monthly is a bit lower. So that would be an interesting area to watch. So again, 98, 445, and where that would coincide with on this. But yeah, so that might be around, yeah, it's just kind of the middle of that last pump, which is probably not ideal, really. Yeah, so you'd want it to come back into this consolidation really, but you know, worth watching if the CME pair hits the monthly level there. Then, so the other things to consider were, so obviously I talked about US dollar dominance and the possibility of it going just either way. Um, Total and all the totals. So obviously we didn't have much breakdown on these, but none of these have also have broken the high either, and in fact they're sort of more bearish than BTC. So obviously total itself is stronger. And again, kind of closed above the 5 day and the 4 day levels there. So again, might pick up support here. So just need to keep an eye on it. Total 2 has taken off a bit more because of Ether, but is now in weekly supply. And I've talked about this previously that, you know, again, these totals stopped, with the exception of Total, like Total 2, Total 3, and others, all stopped, you know, just before kind of where I would have wanted, you know, preferably I would have wanted to look for shorts on Ether or the market there. So I don't know if this is going to run through here before then potentially getting a bigger rejection, or it's going to reject here and come down first. So that's been the challenge on this, and I haven't talked about it on Total 2, but it's basically the same as others. So again, I would like to look for longs if we come back into these zones, and again, just be aware that I have talked like multiple times before about, you know, the sort of similarities with the structure over here and the possibility of having this head and shoulders go on. So you know we are potentially, we've got the opportunity to do that. So just be a little bit careful. And again, somebody was asking me yesterday as well, like in the group, like what about think about the possibility of reversal. And I was just saying it's pretty hard. I mean, I'll get to it on alts in a minute, but it's actually pretty hard to judge in some cases. When you're in this point, you know, it's like, is it going to go up? Is it going to continue up? You know, is Bitcoin here now just in consolidation where everybody's still super bullish before it then really dies? And at this point, you don't really know, so you're just trying to find those signs on the lower time frames. Total 3 looks more like a lot of the majors. So it's got weekly supply a little bit higher. It's just come back into a 5 day. It has flipped this 3 day inside. The majors also, the other difficulty I had on the majors is that some of them came, oh, excuse me, some of them came a little bit deeper down to here. So I was a little bit, what's the word? Reactive, because I was saying, well, potentially you can look for longs in this section. But yeah, then they had this further drop, which was something that was potentially expected because a lot of the majors, I'll again show those in a minute, you know, had untested zones down here. And in fact, so does Total 3. So, but again, at least Total 3 here has hit monthly supply, which we have seen on most of the majors, like Sols, I think, in a 3 month supply, and BCH in a 3 month supply, although coming off 6 month demand. A few of the others, I think Dot and Atom are in 3 month or 1 month supply. Real ice bear. um, I'm hoping the stream's going to last. At the moment, we're doing all right, actually. I haven't had any errors yet, but I am recording it in the anticipation of my computer dying. Yeah, so anyway, this can be a consolidation, and we are still in the weekly uptrend here. So it's at that kind of just indecisive moment. We've got this monthly supply, so my monthly bias is down. But are we going to hold this weekly for another move up before we get down? I don't know. Then on top of that, you know, to provide more conflicting information, we're in a 3-month uptrend, but then we're at a possible double top. So there's just, for me, there's just so much indecision in this. And that's why I just want to look at each zone as they're hit, and very much some majors. And majors, I've been really still making calls both directions, and you know, some things are being a bit crazy. I find I think Upbit listings seem to be pumping things at the moment, but they seem to be holding, which is kind of unusual. But yeah, for the most part, other than a couple of exceptions, yeah, Raven, ICX that have kind of continued sort of aggressive up moves, unexpectedly continued, with the rest of the market being fairly bearish. For the most part, yeah, we're still able to trade both directions. And I also said again in the previous stream, I wanted to do all the 2-month levels at the end of May, and I've done some of them, are not loads, but you know, again, we've got a massive mix of alts. Like some of them have made new monthly or 2-monthly demands. Others have made new monthly or 2-monthly supplies. And I think I've seen one monthly supply that was a week supply that's got run through, but virtually everything, I think, at least is holding consolidations at the moment for the other ones that I've seen. So others is sort of similar scenario to Total 3, that we've come up and we've hit this weekly supply there, coming off weekly demand in weekly supply. So I expect a rejection here, but that doesn't mean it's going to make a lower low. So, and what I need to see now is, are we going to pick up this 2-day demand, or are, for alts particularly, this not so much. So for alts particularly, for the alts that are in monthly supplies here, is my alarm. For the alts that are in monthly supplies, are, I would expect, you know, this to now just start drifting back down through there, and for the head and shoulders to play out. From an others perspective, again, my concern is that this supply isn't a strong supply, and that we're still coming off 3-month demand on this. So the risk we always had on this is, again, are we going to go up there, similar to what I just said with Total 2? Is it going to reject here, come lower, and then go up there, or we're just going to run straight through this supply? But from what I see on alts in general, I think I already had those drawn on here, actually. Yeah, all the kind of ideas that I had. Oh, I said this was a bullish scenario, that we just go straight up through, we consolidate before taking off. And yeah, then I had some sort of various ideas that we kind of bounce off here, we come back up there, and we come back down lower into this demand. This is kind of potentially less likely scenario now, because I've seen some of the majors have already done this. But again, it's that kind of mixed bag. Then so this was similar without the mid waves, that whether we were just going to come straight down into those zones before getting that move up. And again, that's sort of a more bullish scenario, that we're even going to have that move up. And then the other option was that we just break straight through here. So those are a few of the ideas, and then the larger head and shoulders that I talked about. You know, I would have wanted that to be slightly higher, but again, if we're in a weak market, then we want the shoulder to be weak. So to make a decent head and shoulders, you should really first look at it with volume and check volume matches, but I won't do that now. But really, you also want this to be lower, so the right shoulder, start of, what do you call that, the neckline on the right side to be lower. So at the moment, this is not a strong head and shoulders, because we've got a higher low. But again, with the right shoulder, you wouldn't want the right shoulder to be all the way up here. I mean, apart from the fact that then it looks more like a channel. But again, that's showing strength in the market. So the fact it kind of, if it rejects here, does show weakness. But it's still a big if, and we're still just stuck on that weekly between supply and demand. So yeah, that's that. Those are the actually, the only other things that are worth considering on with the dominance. So dominance and DeFi, actually. So I didn't talk about DeFi. So quickly on DeFi. So DeFi has almost come through all the way through that weekly. And I did actually put, if you read my Telegram channel, I did actually put that I was generally bearish with the possible exception of DeFi and Ether. So it's kind of interesting that we've had finally a breakout on Ether and DeFi is looking stronger here as well. I'm not sure what this is really made up. I mean, I know ARV, but I think, yeah, I'm not sure what other DeFi coins there are. So I'd have to look and see which are the strong ones. You know, is ICX and Raven, are they DeFi ones? Is that why this is pushing? But again, similar scenario, it's in weekly supply, but could potentially go up here to test higher. This was a better Head and Shoulders. It was a bit lower. It didn't take out that low, but at least was lower. But still, you know, if we were looking for more viable shorts, we would want to look around the 61 fib, which on the linear scale is significantly higher, and on the log scale is even then a little bit higher. So this now is obviously trying to push through weekly supply here, having not come down very deep. So DeFi showing a bit of strength along with Ether. BTC dominance is interesting. We're up in the 6-month supply. It's now been the second test, and you know, it had a decent drop on that 2-month level inside. Sorry, just checking my stream. Still says excellent, shockingly. We now have a 2-week demand in here. So I'm just not sure. So it's going to be very interesting because this is a 2-week demand. So if it does flip, if it does end up closing below, then we need to see where the money's going to go. Is it going to go into stable coins or is it going to go into alts? Today obviously looks slightly more bearish, but you know, it hasn't closed below anything at the moment, and it can still, you know, we had this sort of slow grind through much of this up move that kind of looks not dissimilar to this. So given we're on 2-week demand, coming off what a daily supply up here, which is kind of interesting, but given we're on 2-week demand, I can't be too bearish on that as yet. Ether dominance was useful, more so than Ether BTC, quite frankly. This made a weekly demand and it's just tapped into that, taken off there. So again, Ether I wouldn't mind a little bit higher. Is it going to be higher because the US dollar pair goes up or because the US dollar pair comes down less than Bitcoin? Not sure. I think that's unusual, but it'd be nice to see this get another push. So again, we're looking for what new demand is going to be made. It might make a weekly by the end of the week. Might, you know, only just closed the 5-day and the 4-day, so that's not very useful. Yeah, so it's not got no new demand in there at the moment. It's got a new daily down here. So we can see if that holds. And again, I was looking back on Ether BTC actually rather than this, but you know, at kind of the pumps we've had before and how the tops look. And it was, I think, yeah, this June, July 2024, I think is worth keeping an eye on from the perspective of Ether, because this could potentially still be doing a similar. It's a bit stronger and does have a weekly demand, but yeah, it doesn't look quite as similar on the. You need to look at the Ether BTC pair, so won't go into that now. Others dominance. So again, I've been more bearish on this. This made a 3-week supply. It's got a little bit of space before it tests that, or possibly a 4 or 5-day in there. So it's testing this low. I do expect this to drop still at this stage. That is the higher probability. So I do think that the situation is still be very careful on alts and on alt longs and position yourself short if you can. Maybe not quite yet. I might be, you know, a little early. That is a 3-week chart. So, you know, maybe we get another couple of days of trying to get through this broken orange level up into this area. Maybe it even comes back in here. Like, hopefully, again, we're not going to have this sort of, you know, channel scenario where we end up coming all the way up back to the top here before doing it. Yeah, so just be a bit conscious when this gets into here of what your alt positions are. And then TOTALDEFI, as I said, you know, that's why one of the other reasons I said this potentially was stronger, is this did make, you know, it's got a bigger 2-weekly demand over here. It did also make a weekly, and it's obviously pumped off that. So, you know, there is hope for this. This is probably one of the few charts that I have hope. There would be nothing wrong with looking for longs on this if this was something you could trade. I don't know if it is something you could trade. Maybe you can. And, you know, it has, you know, it's got a bit of chop through here, but it does have some space for 2-month supply and 3-month supply above. The other thing that's going to be interesting is how the 6-month candles are going to close. So we've still got, you know, 20 days till that happens. But are we going to create new 6-month and 3-month supply or demand on things is going to be pretty interesting. And are we going to have a last few weeks of June pump to negate some of these 6-month supplies that we're seeing at the moment on things? But yeah, so DeFi it's in supply now, so I wouldn't be going out rushing out and buying all the DeFi things, but watch this come back down and keep an eye on it. It's a second hit on a daily supply. It's coming off weekly demand, so there is a possibility that that's going to push through there in the next few days or week. So yeah, that's the kind of market as a whole. But yeah, and my concerns and why again just really need to trade both directions. What's Bitcoin doing since I started? Okay, so we made a new 4 hour supply on Bitcoin, so there is nothing wrong with looking for shorts now. I'm a tad late, but that would have been the short entry anyway, and then to take it down at least to here where you've got 4 hour demand. And then you want to see what the reaction is there. So here we've got a 4 hour demand, and then like I said, we've got that flip of this 3-day into 4-day demand. So we really want to be staying above there if this is continuing to be bullish. But yeah. So yeah, we just want to be staying above here if we can. Quantum computing allows anyone to steal Bitcoin easily. Okay. I don't know anything about that, so please expand if you think that's relevant to the chart somehow. It's something happening with quantum computing development that I'm unaware of. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, the final kind of solution, the final summary of Bitcoin anyway, is that we're in we're at all-time high retest. We are in supply. Yeah, this is all-time high. So this red level 109 is all-time high retest. We are in supply. So personally, I don't look for longs. You can look for longs on lower time frames if you see the 4-day here, 4-hour hold here, along with that 4-day level, and or the daily down here. I need to think things through a little bit more. Be conscious we have the CME gap below. Be conscious overall that this giant thing could end up as a double top if it wants to. Cartel in North Korea has been stealing billions in Bitcoin. Stealing from whom? Hopefully they're stealing from the ETFs, because that would be nice to get them out of the market. But also, how's that relevant? That's why the USA is fighting the cartels. Is this like conspiracy theory stuff? You have to send me a link because I don't know anything about that. Anyway, I digress. And beyond that, yeah, like I say, you've got various levels you can watch below, but it becomes, once we've had big moves like this without testing levels, then it's hard to know if, when we do come back down, there is a fair chance that we run through everything. So I do think be very careful about doing any limits in here. If this is, just to reiterate again, this is weekly demand, but it is weak demand while we haven't broken that high significantly. So if we do come back down here, we might get a bounce, but then that could, end up resolve downwards to better demand, or we could just run straight through that zone. So again, just be a little bit careful. And that's obviously the bear scenario. The bull scenarios, we're still in an uptrend. We aren't coming back to test anything. Therefore, we have strength. Unfortunately, I just don't think the data supports that. So that's the other thing to be acutely aware of, is the data is not supporting this up move, particularly unless secret things are going on with OTC or the cartels in North Korea that I don't know anything about, or that I can't measure. Anyway, that's enough on Bitcoin. 40 minutes. Oh, and Bitcoin and all the market cap charts. Ether is just causing me physical pain. So Ether again, the big red circled. It doesn't look so big like this. It looks bigger when we look on a higher time frame. So I had a few other possibilities for sure. So this is kind of just what I was just saying on Bitcoin as well. Actually, when you have multiple levels like this and they haven't been tested, you can then end up with a giant candle through it. So again, like I say, on Bitcoin, if it does come back down, be aware of that. That it can just run through everything, similar to how Ether has to the upside. So this red circled zone, it was just the start of the 3-month zone, so obviously that runs all the way to the high. It's this huge brown area, so it doesn't have to reject at the exact level, and we're getting this consolidation around here. We also had a weekly demand, and while it hadn't closed particularly significantly above it, we came down much deeper inside. There was also a 5-day in there which we came deeper inside, but now obviously the weekly has picked up. So as far as, can we judge these breakouts? Yes, we can judge them, while we're holding demand. Sorry, Hiking Blue Jay, what are you saying? North Korean hackers cash out hundreds of million. Oh yes, the Bybit hack, I forgot about that. No, I guess nothing on, but I mean, you say nothing on the internet is safe, but yeah, then your actual bank isn't safe. You sound like my mum who kind of goes, oh, Bitcoin was used for this crime. And I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, but if Bitcoin wasn't there, people would use the US dollar or the pound or whatever. So it's not like, you know, people can use whatever they want to use. Like crime will still be crime regardless of anything else. But you're right certainly from the perspective is that you should certainly spread your crypto amongst wallets and things like that, so people don't. So if somebody hacks you in one place, they're not hacking you in all the places. Um, so that's certainly a wise plan. Um, so yeah, so yeah, to whoever in the group was saying to me yesterday, that we don't know if it's going to do a big breakout. So I agree with that. Yeah, you're right. Banks are not safe either. Yeah, nothing's safe. Certainly not even walking down the street. Um, um, I can believe this level now anyway. So this, we held weekly demand. So obviously we then expect a weekly up move. But what we don't necessarily know is whether we're going to get consolidation in between. So in this case, it's gone straight through 3-day supply. And then, so I didn't have the 3-day alerted again. I had a daily alerted here because it aligned better with, I think with CME and just generally across the market. But obviously it ran straight through that level. And then even here, I've left a possibility of a short on the hourly at the top here. And again, obviously we've taken out the previous high, but not got quite up to taking out these highs here, which was the next like higher time frame level of interest. So again, like I wouldn't mind seeing another push on this to take out those highs. And then again, just to reiterate, so we are getting a long consolidation here. I'll go back to the weekly. So as I said, we are in 3 months supply up here. Yeah, you're right. Banks are insured at least, so if you do lose all your money, they should give it back to you. But that's assuming they give it back to you, because in some cases they try not to. Depends on which country you're in, I find. And I feel Portugal wouldn't be very good for that, but the UK is pretty good for giving people money back when they lose it through their own stupidity, which surprises me because I think if you lose it through your own stupidity, then you should lose it. But anyway, that's just me being a little bit harsh. Okay, so we're in 3 months supply up here. So I've already talked about this, that we're in, we made this double top. We expected this down move. We expected this to be weak demand here. We're going to bounce off it, and then we came back through it. This also we expect to be weak demand. And again, similar to the structure I just described on Bitcoin, we have got a decent bounce off it, but it is entirely possible that we just get to the, the 61 fib kind of area. So that is the full fib. So we hit, well, the 61 log, a linear fib actually is a little bit higher up at that weekly. And the 61 log fib is a little bit higher than the previous high. So this next black cross, and the reason it's black is because I would look for a swing failure of the equal highs to the left. That would be, that's coinciding with the 61 fib. So again, I've shared this previously and with smaller time frames. So here, for example, the 61 fib retracement. Here, I think may have been a 61 fib, or maybe it's a little bit higher than a 61. But again, this sort of double top coming back here, 61 fib before dropping back down. Here, I was kind of hoping we would get to the 61 fib on this bounce, but we didn't. So the structure now is slightly different, but again, we are conscious that this is weak monthly demand. So yeah, what was Aussie Man's question? Is Ether just ranging or preparing to break out? I mean, now it's had such a big up move, I would have thought maybe it's preparing to break out. And this again, it didn't quite. So it closed again, having gone back through that 5-day demand. So that was where I had another entry for a possible long on this 5-day demand, but it came all the way back down. Arguably, it should be to the bottom of that wick. Then I actually hadn't shared that in the last video, but I had shared this question mark zone. So there was an hourly, there are 2 hourly zones here. It's taken wicks down to the lower hourly zone, which I said might be a possibility for a bounce there. So that actually obviously was a very nice long entry there. Then I was hoping for a short here and hoping for a short here, but obviously we're still running. So I don't know, like it's hard to say because again, Aussie Man, I'm getting a bit swayed by crypto Twitter, who are all very bullish on this. But then none of them ever comment on the 3 month. So they will talk about potentially being in the 3 months down here, actually, although we did wick through, this was the 3 months down to that level. So we did swing fail the 3 months. So it's possible we swing fail the low of the 3 month. Maybe we're going to swing fail the high of this 3 month. We have left double top there. It is possible that this runs up and now makes a higher high. However, again, so this is just something I kind of don't really want to trade. Do I use log fibs for long time steps, linear for shorter? Well, I mean, no. So no, shorter. Shorter, it really wouldn't matter which you use because they're basically the same. It's only when you're doing long and long distances in price that you see the differences. So mostly on the lower time frames, you'll see very little difference between log and linear, and it's something I struggle with actually. I prefer what I try to look at is what previous PA has done. So if I'm doing massive moves, particularly on alts, then obviously I'm more inclined to use log, but I actually don't find them very reliable at all. Ether had a phase of being very reliable on 61s. So if you measure a lot of these bounces that it had in both directions, it was doing a lot of 61 retracement. So even when it wasn't hitting supply, it was just 61 retracement. Let me just look at that. I'll do an example one, which probably won't work just on principle. Yeah, so see here, like this, that had that drop, came straight back up to the 61, which happened to be just taking out those highs and then drop. But yeah, a lot of these were very nice 61s, I think, throughout a lot of this section last year. Obviously now this is a much bigger move, and I think on the bigger moves, 61s just really, if they happen to coincide, like I'll look at them to the extent that do they coincide with zones that I'm looking at, but I really find them very, very unreliable. And Bitcoin is much more likely to do 78 or 88s. And FX, they're more reliable, but even then, not massively. But I think lower time frames, they are much more reliable. So in general, and in that case, it doesn't matter whether it's linear or log. But yeah, I do like to look at the 61 on Ether at the moment, particularly because it has been very reliable on the 61s. And yeah, even like I said, with those previous, this previous, like just exactly almost to the 61 there. So yeah, I think it's worth keeping an eye on those levels, but they aren't necessarily levels that I would just blindly long. But also I like to look at them in kind of reverse as well. So for example, if I'm looking at where the top might be, I think I've mentioned this before, but let's say that we're at the top now, then I go, okay, what's the fib of this whole up move? And then I go, is the 61, the 70 and the 78, are they at places that price would find support? Because I do find this is quite reliable, that if, let's say we were here, and the 61 just kind of, well, it's on those wicks, but it's kind of floating, and the 78, okay, it's under those wicks, but it's not ideal, then, that's not a good estimate for where the top will be. It's not something, again, you can use in isolation, but I kind of go, like if I think this might be topping out, I kind of go, if this topped out, where would the 61 fib be? Where would the 78 be? And again, doesn't mean I would necessarily long here, but it might at least give a bit of a bounce on there. In this case, probably going to take those stops. But anyway, what's my opinion on Ether if I switch to the yearly time frame? Okay. Basically the same. If you're regarding your question earlier as to the giant range, it's a giant range. Hold on, BitMEX I think doesn't have all the history, so let me see if I've got a more history chart. Okay. Bitfinex. Okay, so we didn't quite test that. No worries, realized bear. Okay, just then to finish that. For me, if you followed me enough, then you'll know that pretty much everything I do is supply and demand. If there are too many supplies and demands, and they're strong or weak, and I'm not sure, generally actually not if they're strong, if they're weaker and I'm not sure, then I start using other confluence. So I'll use fibs. I will use I should probably use divergence more. I use the data on the lower time frames that I talked about on exo charts and coinalize and CVDs and things like that. But mostly, for the most part, I just use supply and demand, and anything that adds to that is a bonus. But it doesn't even, if it doesn't add to it, then I'm probably not going to stop using it either. So yeah, it's a tough one. But I mean, if you are just learning, I'm not sure how experienced you are, but if you are just learning, I would strongly suggest that you basically focus a lot on supply and demand and build charts from scratch. So like if you were building this, I think I've already got stuff on this. Yeah, so but if you're building like build charts from scratch, so go to the yearly, put in your yearly demand, because you'll start seeing, you know, okay, that's just missed there. And it just really helps you see, oh, look, it bounced there. Like, why did it bounce there? And that's so much of how I learned was kind of going, okay, it bounced there. Why did it bounce there? You know, sometimes, you know, it doesn't, you know, again, the higher time frames are a bit more challenging because you'll get front runs and things where people are super keen to jump in. Um, but it does very much help you see, okay, that one broke. Why did that 3 month there? Why did that break in favor of trying to come down into this demand? But it didn't quite hit this demand. Hence why I think it will go back there. Anyway, from Aussie man's perspective, what's my opinion on Ether if I switch to the yearly? So obviously, yeah, it's a yearly uptrend. It's kind of hard with these. If I look on, so this is the thing. Like, this is where I think when you look at really high time frames, this is where the fundamentals come in. Let me just slide a zero. Is Ether the future? You know, because people kind of go, oh, well, it looks like gold, or the same with Bitcoin. You know, it looks like gold. It's, you know, but then obviously gold has this massive perception in the world that it's a very valuable thing to have, which actually is way less valuable than it really should be because of its deep pegging from the US dollar. But ignoring that, and the same, you know, when you're trading stocks and things like that, you know, Amazon is going to continue to, you know, sell to people, and it's going to expand whatever it offers and its core services and all that sort of stuff. So for those, I can kind of go, yes, that I believe, you know, that we're in an uptrend and we're, you know, potentially going to just do this forever until Amazon, something comes on and takes over from Amazon or from gold or whatever. The problem I have when I'm looking at crypto is, and Ether particularly, and even Bitcoin, you know, it's like, well, you know, what is the offering? What is it offering? You know, and even Bitcoin, like, it's like, what is it really offering to the world? Like, unless people actually take Bitcoin on as a payment method globally, which maybe they will, then it's not offering anything. Ether, and I don't know enough about this, is obviously offering it's an application platform, isn't it? So, but again, like I don't know enough about the fundamentals to know, you know, what's the likelihood of this, you know, being a, you know, we had a, wait, gosh, doing very well here. Hold on a sec, turn the magnet off. Right, so you know, wave and retracement 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, from an Elliott wave perspective, that would be, you know, the high time frame view. Does it have the fundamentals to do that? I don't know. Has it got enough history to say it's going to do that? No. But you know, so again, we're just trading what we see. So yes, you know, if you want to buy this when it hits a low, you know, when it came down here and all throughout this drop, then you should have been buying if you're an investor, thinking that this is going to go to, you know, 20k or whatever, you know, or up to the top of this channel. You know, maybe it gets here in September 2027 and, you know, hits 45k. You know, if that's your belief in Ether, but that's my problem. Like, I don't know enough about that from the fundamentals perspective. I only know about that line's annoying me. I only know about, you know, supply and demand. So I just simply say to myself, okay, if it hits this annual level, I'll look for longs. If it hits this monthly inside the annual, I will look for longs. If we're here in 3 month supply, I'm not looking for longs. You know, if you want to trade this thinking this is going to break, that's up to you. But for me, this is not a good place to look for longs. You know, even if it does do that, like it's not. There are other things I would rather long that are not in 3 month supply, because the higher probability trade for me on this is a short. If it then picks up support and takes out that low, picks up support on this 3 month, then maybe I will look for longs again. But at the moment, you know, we've had a move up of, you know, what's that, monthly candle. So it had a strong the 5th of May. Oops. You know, if you're trading this lower time frame and you want to trade, you know, if you traded along there based on what I said last on the previous stream and on that entry we had, you know, for a long in there, knowing we're in 3 month supply, that's entirely up to you. You know, there's no reason you can't scalp that because this could still, you know, even this can still go all the way up to the top here and, you know, be a hair below and still respect the 3 month. You know, maybe, you know, that's where you're going to triple top. But all I know is that I don't want to. So I think a weekly is reasonable to look for longs, even despite the fact you're in a 3-month zone. So at least if it's got a weekly. And if it creates a new weekly at the end of this week, then potentially again looking for another long on that. Yeah, and then for now, I'd be looking for shorts in here. You know, obviously now it's not really, you know, it kind of looked like maybe it was going to do something, but today's move or yesterday's move has kind of pushed it higher than I would like for that. So then again, in the next zone to look for shorts in is kind of up there. And then I've got various, you know, this 2-month level that I just talked about in the middle. Yeah, so that's kind of the yearly. I don't know if that answers the question. I digress as usual. So anyway, back to the busier chart. So for longs on this, you know, like I say, I'll give them if zones are in play. But you know, I said a number of times on this, be conscious of the fact we're coming off 3 months supply. So for me, longs are not the highest probability on here. However, I know people like them, and obviously I get clout if it does go up, and I am right, so it's worth putting a few in just in case. But my instinct on this is down. Whether it's going to do what it might do, actually, if you're asking if this is a consolidation, Aussie man, you know, what it might do is something like this. That's very, very possible. And again, the pattern we've seen many times, and I've talked about many times on various time frames. You know, that would be a higher time frame version. Not doing very well with my mouse today, but you know, this is a lower time frame version. You know, consolidation, wick up, drop. That's a very common ether pattern. So, and same here. Consolidation, up, drop. So Ripple has its triangle fake out pattern. So the Ripple pattern is triangle, fake out, drop. It's not dissimilar to this. Gosh, this ether is normally after some sort of a pump. But kind of it doesn't necessarily have to be a triangle, but it's a similar kind of consolidation, up, drop. So yeah, just be careful of that. But really for, you know, on the short side, you know, if you want to be more comfortable on the short side, you're waiting for this weekly to break and then you're selling a retest on that side of it. So rather than trying to just short here whilst it's still going up. And what else on Ether? Damn this pen. Maybe it's just because it's giving me karma because I haven't streamed for too long. Okay, so I swear I just deleted that sometimes. Sometimes I think the trading view, actually it's probably my computer is just causing me grief. Yeah, so on this, so yeah, Ether, you know, it's taken out last week's high. Maybe it will drop from here, but I don't want to short this yet. For me, my preference on this would be to go and take out the next highs and also have Korea go up into 2-day weekly supply. So the Korea is obviously significantly lower structurally than the US dollar pair. So I'd still at this stage probably want this to go a little bit higher given that we've had this push. The only other thing to be conscious of is we left a CME gap again last night. So it closed the weekend one yesterday, but then it did leave a CME gap here last night at 2600. So again, just be conscious of that. But we're looking for a strong close on this today, and then CME will create a 2-day demand in here. And then here again, if you want to be looking for longs, you could probably start looking for longs at 2600 and see where that goes. Let's see where 2600 is on the chart. Yeah, so that would be around that 2-day level. So you're looking for that level to hold. It's got a daily a little bit lower, but yeah, so looking, and again, this, so something like this, lower time frame, again, I would fib. So if this is the top now, get my magnet back. If this is the top now, so again, 61 fib is in that kind of area. So you can see I can do the, so if I do the linear and the log, the linear has a very slightly higher, but there's not that much difference, which is why I'm less concerned. But yeah, so, and then again, if that was the high, then I'd be looking at where the 61 is. You know, I don't love the 61 here. It's kind of floating, but yeah, maybe that means that this isn't going to be the top, nor is this going to be the top. That's the other consideration there. You know, that if this is going to run, you know, maybe it runs all the way up to there, and then that 61 would be nicely aligned with the 5-day demand, or would then be a 5-day demand. So it's all different things to consider. But yeah, so anyway, in summary on Ether, 3 month supply, so I'm still very cautious on longs, but we're still obviously holding this range and holding an uptrend and holding weekly demand, and then holding this red box, which is the base of my range. So you can still long until that's broken if you like. However, I think there are a lot better things to long. And then if we drop, again, we've got this consolidation here, which might pick up as support. At the moment, I've still got an alert just for this 5-day weekly at the base there, but also if we get that low, I just would think we're probably going to go down and take out, going down at least into this 3-month, and then if not, take out that whole consolidation if it comes back that low now, because that will mean the 3-month is playing out. You know, if this kind of drops a bit and consolidates through here, you know, even if it doesn't get all the way down to here, because it might just find support somewhere in the middle and then moves up, then that would be better. But if it does come back and test here, then I'm not expecting any sort of up move really from there, I don't think. But yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, my thoughts on Ether would be just leave it alone. If you want to long anything, long TRX, because all that does is go up. Wait till it dumps and then, yeah, long that. This has, yeah, all my levels have just reappeared on things I've deleted on these. Okay, so the majors again, just very quickly, because same as I always say, actually, like I haven't looked at them in enough detail, but TRX I added was as a new major, because EOS got rebranded, and let me just, EOS got rebranded, and I thought TRX was a nicer thing to be looking at. So TRX, I was looking at a rejection on this daily supply here, but obviously it still held support where I had an alert for, I think, for 4-day demand. I think at that point now, it's now made a weekly. So I have put a new, more aggressive alert for a possible long. It was 12-hour demand at that point, but it's kept going and obviously not come back to test. So this might end up just taking off before I even get back to, before it even comes back for me. But you know, if you want to, if it makes a daily demand here today and you want to take an aggressive entry, you know, it is TRX. It does seem to just be supported by Justin Tron or something. Justin Sun. There was something slightly wrong about that. So, you know, this could just very easily continue on its merry way upwards. And then, yeah, so I've got a short entry on that if it gets to daily supply up there, but a tentative short entry, and then, you know, the 12-hour/weekly demand here, which I would like to hold if it does retest. So the other majors where the structures look more the same. So it's similar to what I was talking about with the others. Excuse me, catching up on protein at the same time. So what we had on all of these, the majors, new and old, pretty much, I think, and most of them look broadly the same, is that we had an up move. We had a new demand created here, in this case 3-day, weekly. Some of them have got 5-day, they're all just sort of mixed around. Then we had a weekly created above. And in most cases, this bounce there didn't test that lower zone. So what I'll get to is what we found on a lot of the majors is that this drop has come back down into this area. In case of Litecoin here, it actually hasn't. Then what happened is we made 3-day supplies above, and in most cases, I think the only two I put it in, I'm not sure why, because they were the more bullish ones, but BCH and BNB. I think because I thought they had potentially further to fall, whereas the others, they like potentially might just consolidate here for a while. But yeah, so we had this move last week, which was making 12-hour demands. The only one to get to supply was Ripple. I think all of them just sort of stopped here, and I think on my last stream, or in actually it was my last updates in Telegram channel, I was like, oh, you can look for potential longs on these 12-hour demands, but ended up really not getting much further. What I then realized is I hadn't looked low enough time frame, and in fact, you can see here, it's a tiny 4-hour on this, but in fact, all the majors were in sort of 8-hour, 12-hour, 4-hour supplies, even when I said it, and I hadn't looked low enough time frame, unfortunately. So then we got this secondary drop. And in the case of Litecoin, it didn't go much lower. It just took out that wick, held this weekly demand, even though it had trend line stops down there. And now for another move up. So again, I didn't alert aggressively on the 3-day supplies because I thought with the weekly demands, they could well get broken. And in fact, I think, again, all of them have broken now. However, I have alerted 4-day supplies here. And again, this is much the same as what I said on the others chart. We just need to see the reactions, because at this stage, I don't know if we've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to have an A, B, C. And that's what I've said a few times. And that's on the lower time frame. The other issue we have is, and again, this is not exhibited on Litecoin, but a lot of the majors here are in monthly supply. So this ABC, this could be an ABC. And that's getting my kind of indecision there, that are we gonna, or, is it can still do both as well. There can still be an A, B, C, and then a C. So yeah, and then that's kind of my indecision of the whole thing. I'm like, maybe I need to learn more about Elliott waves. I don't know. I still feel like it probably wouldn't help me that much. But again, we just look at zones as and when they're hit. So I've got an alert here for 4-day, or what is that? 5-day supply. There's a 2-day there. It might just run through it. I've seen a couple of the ones that I've placed already have been run through, but so that's the particularly stronger ones. And again, when I look at the larger structures, again, that's the other consideration which I've told for the group. It's to kind of go, okay, where is it coming from? So this is still coming from a 2-month demand. So, if this wants to, that could still be the big picture. This 2-month, a Litecoin isn't overly strong. So this is probably one that I'd be more confident shorting. But then others, if something's coming from a 6-month demand down here, then I might be less inclined to look for shorts on this 4-day. And Link's a good example of that, because the Link BTC pair, I think, has hit, or my alert went, but I haven't quite hit when I last looked, 6-month demand. So if Link BTC is hitting 6-month demand, then we might get Link running higher. And I think Link is one of the ones that wasn't also at a significant high. So it's all those different considerations, and for me, that's why I kind of always put disclaimers that I can't look at everything and think through everything. So while I set the alert, I go, okay, there's 4-day supply, but you need to look at each structure and kind of go, what's the probability? Where's it coming from? Where's it going to? What's the bigger picture, etc., etc. So anyway, there's still a possibility for me on these that we might get a rejection in here and move down into this zone, and then I would just see what happens. So hence I'm setting alerts on this 4-day above, and in some cases, some of these have hit already, but in some cases I've still got alerts for a second test of this lower zone. So that's Litecoin. If it does run through, then same as previously, you have to go back to my previous streams, where you can find all the other older zones above and below that I've talked about previously, but we're just holding in these ranges for quite a long time. So Ripple again went through this 3-day supply, and it did flip it to 3-day demand. So I have put an alert there for the possibility of a long. Show you the 3-day on a retest of the 3-day demand. Again, the supply here is kind of weaker, but again, it's just in a bigger picture triangle. I wanted it to took out one of those lows and take out all of those lows here. Would have liked it if it had gone down here, but I was reluctant to put another long entry in there because we've still got 12-hour, 8-hour demand down there, but there's a bit low time frame. But anyway, Ripple, I still just want to see a bit more, but that's, potential long entry on 3-day demand if it kind of tests there and the whole market isn't going to die because of Bitcoin. But this is sort of similar scenario that I had an alert for the weekly demand here. I had an alert for daily demand at the base of it, and it ended up wicking through on the second test. But it is, in this case, see here, it had actually gone up and tested supply in the interim and then came back down, went straight through those demands for the lower low before. So yeah, just a bit of stop hunting on the majors, which is less common. Like on Bitcoin, we get that a lot, but on majors, slightly less so. Just checking the activity in the stream. All so far so good. Yeah, anyway, so very indecisive on Ripple, basically still holding the range, but that's a nice an aggressive long entry should you wish to take it. BCH, again, it's one of the overly challenging ones, because BCH, again, just quick reiterate, came off 6-month demand here at the base, but is in this giant 3-month supply. So again, that's my issue with the 3-month supplies. I had alerts here for the 3-month tests, the test inside of it, but it doesn't have to reject immediately. It can go all the way to the top, as I said, on Ether. If it wants, it can go all the way up here, it can go all the way up to that high and still respect the 3-month. And then in addition with this, it's coming off a 6-month demand. So then if I look at that higher time frame, this 6-month demand, it's a second test on it, it's a swing fail if it closes that way. So this could just go up and make a higher high if it wants. Obviously, it's got and annual demand I think it's coming down from. So again, it's just mixed, but again, it's wicked quite hard. So it's in a tough little range on that. What I would like to see on this, I guess, is for a close above this red candle and creating a new 3-month demand at the end of June. And then we'll see. But for the moment, again, I've just been trading both directions on this. So I go back to the busyness of the chart. I did actually hide some of my crosses from previously, but I think I need to hide some more now. Anyway, and it also, so it made a weekly supply. So I thought this was worth a short on that 3-day, just under the weekly, but it's come straight back up through it. And then today has now hit this 12-hour at the top. And again, always the risk, actually it's an 8-hour. You always do run the risk on these as well. Like if I'm alerting the start of a 3-day here or the start of the weekly, that again, it can go all the way up to the top if it wants to. What's the pair I'm most decisive or have high conviction? Oh, what, longs or shorts? None, to be honest, because I just don't work that way. I can tell you, like on a daily basis, as I don't know if you're in the group or not. I had somebody new join the group, and I'm not sure if it's one of you guys or if it's somebody completely different. But yeah, so occasionally I'll put in the group that I'm liking the look of a particular chart. So, like for example, these are all shorts on here at the moment, I think. This is the kind of speeds we're working with on my computer. So anime, let me show you anime. So I'll just occasionally I'll spot a chart. So I don't really have any high time frame conviction on anything because I don't know the fundamentals, and that's what you really need if you're going to have high time frame conviction on something. But what I will is occasionally find something like this where I think actually, this could go for a breakout. So and it was actually at this point, and I was completely wrong at that point. But it was mainly because it had hit multiple times on this daily supply. So I was like, it was worth looking for an aggressive long on this, but it turned out it didn't work, and it came down deeper. And then again I set this alert for a retest for a possible short, but again did say that this might actually be not a good place to short, but potentially for a long, because we'd had this proper retest down here, and then again getting a re-entry here and a re-entry here yesterday until we get up into the next supply. So I can't say what pair I have high conviction. Like I occasionally come across things I've now long forgotten, but like INS, FET, I think both were on annual demand. Like if you see something hit an annual demand and it's taking its time, consolidating, it's going to take weeks. Like it doesn't, the chances of it actually bouncing straight off annual demand and making a new high a week later is very small. They take weeks, but those are the ones you should be looking for. Like even, hold on, let me sort my list. But as things are falling, what you should be doing, why is this list not sorting? Please sort. As things are falling, when we're getting the big corrections, then you should be looking for the major zones. I want to go PopCap, but I think this might not be an ideal one. But so entries like this, those are the ones. So those are the ones that I have high conviction on at the time. But once it's moved, it's moved. If you're holding from there, then great. Maybe you can hold for an all-time high if you're a PopCap lover. But again, that's my problem. Is like I don't know enough about the fundamentals to go PopCap to the moon. What I also do know is I know enough about crypto to know that even if the fundamentals are really good, I've had enough conversations in other groups where people have been going, "Oh my god, the fundamentals of this coins are amazing," and then the thing dies. If the market dies, every coin will die. So I don't talk like that. I don't talk about conviction, but I will have high conviction when things hit annual demands and things like that. But it's just a question of having the patience of waiting for things to play out. INJ here. So you can have conviction if it's a coin, particularly one that like this that people are talking about. When it comes down and hits the annual demand, in this case it's gone a little bit inside, but in this I have conviction that this will make a new all-time high. But is it going to make it in a time frame that you want it to? Probably not. Again, that was a really nice entry here. It would have been like, I guess, a 3-month demand inside the annual demand could come all the way back down there if it wants to before it makes the all-time high. And again, that's why I don't like go with the conviction. I kind of go, okay, this I would have had very high conviction for a long entry on annual demand when it hit. But I wouldn't say enter now with your stop below 6, you know, like when the price has gone more than double, with the hope of an all-time high, you know. But it's just remembering, and that's why I have all my colors and why my charts look so crazy. Because then at least, you know, if I'm zooming in on the lower time frames, you know, I know this isn't a weekly supply. But you know, again, like this has had the bounce on 3 months demand, and it needs to come back and give a test, you know. So it's remembering when this test comes, where it's coming from, you know. And again, okay, so this is actually looking kind of stronger now. It's flipped this weekly level back to demand. So in fact, I've got reasonably high conviction on this now. That's quite a nice flip of a weekly demand there. So this probably is going to get a move up to there. But you know, as if you follow me, then you know that I don't like trading in supply. So I would much rather buy this when it comes down here, if it comes down here. If it doesn't, if it just goes straight up, then I miss it. Like, I don't care. For me, I'll go, okay, I've got the alert there. If it comes there, then we can look for longs. If you want to scalp this here with your stop below there, that's entirely up to you. And someone asked me about goat, I think. Goat. Yeah. So I was asked about longs on goat when the price was around here somewhere. I've got also on through the 3-day in there. When it was here, oh, actually no, it was when it was here, and I was like, well, I don't know, you know, we've got a giant green candle here, so you know, it can pick up support if it wants to, you know, can try and find some support from over here or whatever. But my preference is to look for a long down here. You know, it's we're now, so that was mid-May. We're now 3 weeks later, and we're not even close to that level. But if we get to that level, that is where I would want to long goat. As I say, if you're a goat lover and you believe in the fundamentals, then maybe you know, you can kind of go, oh look, it's got a daily demand there. Let's get in on that daily demand on a retest there, because I've got FOMO and I'm scared I'm going to miss out. But like, yeah, if I'm trading longer time frames or if I'm scalping, then maybe I do that. But the thing is, I would, you know, in this case, I would do that only if this sat there, because this for me is floating. And yes, while it may, you know, maybe it's a 61 fib or whatever, maybe it's going to do that again. Like for me, it's not a high probability trade. The higher probability is once it gets down into this area, then it makes that pattern, and then you look for the daily demand, and then you get the potentially bigger move. Yeah, so that's that. Digressing again. Oh, see, this is the kind of thing that happens with my computer. This is dangerous. Yeah, so and then it suddenly freezes. Hopefully, I'm praying it's not gonna. I managed to make it through, what, an hour and 20 minutes of stream so far. And I actually have to go out tonight, so I need to kind of finish up quite soon anyway. So yeah, it was just to get through the majors if my computer's not going to freeze. Hello, are you working? Yeah, so BCH, I remain a bit indecisive. I thought I set an alert for 3-day demand here for that flip of 3-day, but can't see the alert, so I don't know. Maybe I actually didn't set that. I think, or maybe I was just thinking about it being indecisive because I've got this weekly, still tough with got the weekly supply. Anyway, I'll think about that, but you can consider that for a 3-day demand long there. I need to think about whether I want to alert that or not, and or find out where the alert's disappeared off to, if it should have an alert there. But yeah, as I was saying with BCH, is a bit more challenging because it's got the 6 months demand and the large 3-month supply. But again, if you want to trade a local uptrend and just trade up to the next zone, that's entirely up to you. I think that was all the old majors. TRX is obviously the most bullish, so if you want to scalp something, TRX is the way to go. And then the others, yeah, you're just waiting for the zones to hit. Then new majors A, where we've got, hopefully it's going to load, we've got BNB, Link, ADA, and Dogecoin. Hello. Yeah. Fun times, this is say, you're now starting to experience what happens with my computer. That is minor. What will normally happen is the entire thing will freeze up, it starts making loud noises, and then I have to restart it, and I have to unplug it because it freezes so badly that it just won't even do anything. Anyway, I'm just doomed. if anyone wants to donate to GoFundMe for a new computer, please feel free. For something like super hardcore, because I'm really stingy. Um, anyway, that's my phone beeping. That's probably my friend going, "Where are you?" Oh, okay. Um, right. So basically, and so the reason I gave the detail on Litecoin was because, yeah, kind of all these were sort of similar. So um, BNB is different actually. So I'll do like, so Link, Doggy, and ADA, so we'll all have that the sort of similarities. So Link is on 6 months demand, Doggy is on annual demand, and ADA is on 6 months demand. At the highs, ADA hit monthly supply, but it already had that giant wick through it, so it was just a retest. So I hadn't alerted the highs there on ADA. Link at the highs hadn't got anywhere significant. So this was one of the other comments I made previously, that maybe we're going to see some of the alts, and Link is potentially, or despite the fact I've had a short alert hit on that today, Link is potentially one of them that maybe we're going to see go and take out new highs, where we'll see the other ones which have already hit major zones are going to just consolidate, and we'll get Link. So Link BTC being the strength on that pair, maybe Link is one of the ones that is going to run to proper supply above, and then others will be weaker. And then finally, Doggy also actually, so no, Doggy had hit a 2 month zone, but I think, yeah, so it was just a retest of a previous 2 month zone that had already got run into. So Doggy, ideally, I wanted higher on this in this monthly supply. So again, so this is kind of what I was saying a minute ago on INJ as well. Like, it's like you get that low, you look, I did have other alerts here for Doggy getting to the annual demand, and then we came to monthly inside or 2 monthly inside it. And then again, we've had other alerts for looking for long re-entries on this on the way up. And then it's come up, in the first possible short entry is a weekly supply here. The next one is a monthly supply above. So again, it's are we just going to reject, the major zone here and make a new low, just continue this downtrend? Or are we at the point of reversal? Like, and then the chances of us being at a point of reversal are much higher because we're in annual demand. And again, but it's the same as what I just said for Link, for LTC, that, we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are we going to get an A, B, C? Have we already had that? Maybe. So Doggy, again, I had the aggressive long for possibility of a bounce on this 12-hour demand in there, but obviously the timing wasn't right for that. It had taken too long. So it just ran through, and then I had an alert for weekly demand, and then possibility of a retest of this annual level at the 61. So we did come back down into there. This is actually one of the few that's still rejecting 3-day supply. Like most of them now have gone through this zone. But it is like it's possibilities, at the moment it's in a very ranging scenario. So, we could pick up support here, get another push through the 3-day and come back down into there. Or this 3-day the 3-day could play out and continue the down. Maybe this is 5 down. We just had a small retest, and we're going to get another drop lower. So again, it's just waiting for the zones here, waiting for the low time frames to tell you what the structure is going to do, and then holding if structure's telling you that seems to be the right thing to do. So in the case of Doggy, this is one of the weaker ones, having not got through 3-day supply. But I have set an alert for 4-day up there. So on all of these, I need to make that bigger. So I think on Link, I had an alert for 4-day supply here. So that's already gone off today. So you can keep an eye on that. I think it's got a 2-day a little bit higher, but just be conscious on this, that this is the Link BTC pair is potentially on 6-month demand now. Again, so I have set an alert on for a retest of daily demand here. Link also, so again, Link already got down to that lower zone, so it had a weekly zone, I think, in here. Yeah, so that was the higher entry. So this was a weekly demand. It got a bounce in there, very, very little, and then came down to the lower. So it has now tested kind of where you'd want it to on that. So again, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, could get an A, B, C. Maybe it's completed the correction already, and maybe we're just going to get this, but, and then maybe we'll get a triangle through here before another move up. But again, we're just looking at the reaction there. We're looking at the reaction here. These very much these triangle structures. Yeah, so that's Link. But Link is one of the ones, if it's going to break through, that would be kind of one of the ones that I would think is going to break through. So hence the long entry on that. DOGE, again, no long entry on this at the moment because it hasn't broken 3-day supply, but you can watch that daily if you want. And then finally, ADA. I think ADA has wicked through the 3-day, but it's still holding this 12-hour that it had previously. And hasn't really made any significant, so it's made a 12-hour demand in there, but it might hold that 3-day. There's error on my camera. Might hold this 3-day level on this test that it's doing now, if possible, but again, I've alert there for 4-day supply and alert here for this daily zone if it wants to come and retest a bit lower. But yeah, and so yeah, I guess the other thing on these is I was looking a lot back at this consolidation here, not necessarily just on ADA, but have a look at these consolidations through here, because again, like it does take time, you know, it's a long time through the consolidation. You know, here we've had a decent drop. You know, it's just going to bounce around before we get the big move. And again, that's also per the comments, the questions I was having earlier, you know, having high conviction or whatever, like, you know, when they move, it's so hard to tell when they're going to move and which ones are going to move. And I can look even at the stuff that I've seen today, stuff that I had run today. Obviously, isn't going to load for me now, so maybe I won't do that right now. Wait for it for a minute. But like AXL was what I was going to look at, so you can have a look at AXL. Like what told you that that was going to suddenly pump? And like really what we're seeing, what's telling us that things are going to suddenly pump at the moment are Upbit listings and Binance delistings. So you know, like, so I don't want to wait for these. I would rather trade the little zones, the little bounces that we get in between. Like, you have to have a high conviction that you think something's, you know, going to go from, or ADA's going to go from 30 cents to, you know, 4 times. Like, I just don't think we're in a market like that anymore. And I also think even if we are in a market or we get into a market like that, I just don't think that I don't think it's worth waiting for it. I don't think it's worth your money, because you know you're going to buy like something like this. You're going to buy every single bounce here in the hope that each one of these bounces is going to lead to that. But you know, this took 6 months, and you would have been a lot better just trading each of these little waves. And it's the same here. You know, it's trading each of these little waves and trying to judge to some extent, you know, what the waves will do. The only thing, so again, with the high conviction thing is once zones have been retested. So once you can say, oh, that zone's been tested multiple times, then the chances are it's going to break, either to the upside or to the downside. Computer is starting to fail. It's like it gets tired. Like, I'm not doing anything different. I haven't changed anything, have I, since I started this stream? But then suddenly it will seem to get tired, and then this happens, which actually drives me crazy, because the amount of time I've wasted with this shit happening is, yeah, just, it's too much. So if this is, unless this resolves in the next kind of 30 seconds, I might have to kind of just finish the stream and say that's it. BNB was the only other one. So BNB, like, while I can't see it, I know we can talk about it. It had made a 3-day supply like everything else, and like BCH, that was the one I put in. Oh, here we go. We're back. We'll go on to BNB before it dies. Anyway, there wasn't much more to say on ADA, but it's really just looking at, you know, we've got clear on all of these. We've got a clear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, and we've got a clear move down. In most cases, taking out the first move. But it is possible that these go back to the start of the impulse. It is possible we get a rejection here and another drop. So that's kind of what I'm looking for at this point. If they start to break out, then start to get the ones that haven't, the ones that are lagging. So like if we see a link run through this, then maybe you can look at one of the laggers and like DOGE or something and get that long on the daily demand, and then have that as a lagging trade later. BNB is, again, like I say, a different structure, but it's coming off. So there's some interesting things on this actually. So it's coming off 3-week supply here, but it has made new monthly demand. So again, I would much like to look for longs on the 600 area if we get a test down there. And again, but it's still holding up here, so that may not give me that. It did make a week 3-day, so I actually know it was a strongish 3-day supply, and that's why I looked for the short. And a daily supply inside it. So again, just looking here, if this is going to give a drop. At the moment, it's not looking that strong. I also did, I swear to God, this is just removing the things that I've done. This is probably when my computer crashed earlier. I did also set an 8-hour supply alert on this here. Now the computer's broken again. So I did set an alert for 8 hour supply here, which apparently has just miraculously disappeared. You know what it is? I started using the TradingView app in the hope that maybe that would be better than using Chrome so heavily, but it turned out it was not better. So I thought I'd switch back to Chrome just for the string because that's at least what I know and love, and I'm used to it being useless. But apparently this wasn't the wisest plan. Anyway, we froze it again. So this was the first area I was looking for potential shorts. This is the second area I was looking for potential shorts, and then longs on this monthly demand if it gets back down there. I really wanted to do the last set of the new majors, and then we'd be done with this. If anyone's still watching, you can chat to me if you want, because I can answer questions now while I'm waiting for the computer to kind of decide to do what it wants to do. Oh, we're back. Okay, yeah, there should be an alert there with an 8 hour supply. Probably foolish to actually try and do anything. Thank you, meeting to run to in 10. Yeah, no worries. I'm gonna finish shortly anyway, because like I say, you can clearly see my computer's struggling under the load of all the things that I'm doing. That was sarcastic if you hadn't figured that out. But yeah, my computer is failing dismally, so I might have to just kind of give up the ghost. I really wanted to just look at the other new majors, and there was yeah, so Dot, Near, Sol, and Atom. Okay, let me give this one more go. Okay, anyway, so that's BNB. I put the alert in, but I'll write the text later. And then finally we have Dot, Near, Sol, and Atom, which probably won't load now I've said that. Oh, here we go. Very exciting. And Atom, actually, I was looking at earlier. To try and again give you kind of some idea of why it's difficult, or give myself some idea of why it's difficult. So Atom, oh god, my computer hates me, the world hates me. So Atom it's got an annual supply above now, so but I haven't tested it. Had a 6 month that it did test, so obviously it was in this downtrend, but we're in this kind of tentative 6 month demand. It's from when Binance opened, which is why I say it's tentative. So that's kind of difficulty. It's made a new 3 month supply, week one, but it has rejected off there. So again, it's like, so strictly your target, if it rejects off 3 month supply, if you're shorting based on this green 3 month candle, you're shorting now somewhere now, at the base of that candle with your stop above the top if you're trading very high time frame, and you're looking for it to take out the low at the previous candle, either the 6 month or even the last low. But obviously that potentially is going to take time. But then in the bigger picture, obviously we've got this 6 month demand, so I don't know if this is reversing. Similarly, I also don't know if we're going to come up and test this monthly supply in there. Atom I didn't even get up to. So it's a similar example to what I said. Are we just getting this rejection off this bottom of the 3 month here, or are we going to get another push higher inside the zone? This is another one, again, it's come back down onto weekly demand. This was a bigger weekly demand. And in fact, it's got a 3 week there as well. So maybe this will pick up support just on the 3 week and push for a new high higher inside the 3 month. But I guess this is what I'm sort of looking at, and the challenges I'm looking at across the board. Bigger challenge being my computer. So especially quitting smoking, how can I not be a smoker when I put up the stress of this all day, every day, of this whirring, fucking blue, round, whirring thing? What is that even called? Whirring circle. Anyway, sorry, I have to put up with my rants. Really, this makes me want to kill myself. I'm not going to load anything after this when it comes back this time. Okay, so again, it's just trading each of those little waves. Maybe I'll miss that big wave because I'm not ready for it, or I'm over analyzing it. I don't know, but we'll see. So this is also now take out a 3 month supply, which I deleted before and has reappeared miraculously. Exactly the same scenario here. It's coming off 3 week demand, so it could just run straight through if it wants to make a new high at this point, but I'm just going to see what the reaction is on 4-day supply there. At this point, I'm not looking for any more longs. I've wanted this zone, the 2-week down here, and then the monthly below it to hit for a long time. So we'll see as and when it wants to get back there. Yet again, we're frozen. You're having a freeze. I'm not even doing anything. It's driving me crazy. Even when I was switching windows earlier, it wasn't that bad. So my CPU is 93%, my memory is 94%. Okay. Back again. If we do run through, then I'd be looking at shorts in that 5-day supply, and then yeah, so it's 5-day and then a weekly and a monthly. So there's a whole load of chop up here. So if it does run through, it could run higher there. But again, I'm not overly confident of Atom. This 4-day coincides with that 3-month level, so it'd be nice to see a rejection there. Try and minimize the screen. I'm just gonna have to stop this because I'm gonna smash. I'm gonna be like one of those people on like the. You should get your cameras out because on the you can like film me be one of those people on Instagram streams that like smashes up my computer while streaming because it just drives me so crazy. Okay, so let's do the others quickly. So you can see here I'm just deleting these 3 days. So dot near both gone through 3-day supply, as has Atom. They've all made new daily demands. So again, like if you want to get that aggressive long entry, you can, but I haven't put any in yet. Sol hasn't quite got through the 3-day. So again, it's one of the little bit weaker ones like Dogecoin. And it's interesting actually, Sol and Doggy, but being the weaker ones, they were the ones that they were slow to hit demand, and then are slow. Like so, Doggy and Sol seem to be actually lagging kind of everything else a little bit. I don't want to go back to the other screen, but when everything else had hit demand, you know, here, which is when I was kind of had the more aggressive looking for longs, but then we had this second hit, and I was slightly wary because I was like, Sol and Doggy haven't hit the zones yet. And then we did get that second push down. That's why I like to look for the confluence of the majors. And similarly here, you know, they haven't got through supply yet. Doesn't necessarily mean they won't though, but it could mean, you know, if everything else is going to push up, then Sol and Doggy are going to be the laggers, and they're the ones you should get in a little bit later. But yeah, as you can see on Atom, Near, and Dot all have daily demand. Sol, I think it's a bit more like Ada on the demand side actually. You know, it's got some 12 hours in there, but they've all already been tested. And then all of these, I put alerts on their supply above. So Sol, Near, and Atom all have 4 or 5-day supply. And Dot, I think it's got a daily lattice, but daily is the more aggressive. 2-day and 4-day supply. So yeah, again I've lost one of my so yeah, I can't be losing work. I'm not only am I wasting time like because the things don't load, but I'm also losing work because things aren't saving when the whole computer crashes. So this is an untenable situation. So I'm already on to Lenovo anyway, saying this time I want a new computer. I want a refund. I don't want a new computer anymore because this computer is shit. Anyway, yeah, so that's kind of it. So yeah, again, looking for shorts. Like I said, I don't want to go into too much detail on these now, but Dot's coming off 3-month supply, Sol's coming off 3-month supply. Near isn't, so again, Near, like Link and Doggy, might be one of the ones that can run. So yeah, it's of the ones that I've been more inclined to say are going to run. TRX obviously because it keeps going. But yeah, Link, Near, and Doggy are the ones that didn't make it to major supply. So and all of those 3 are also on quite significant demand. So are worth watching for the possibility of a move up to the next supply. More so I mean, to be fair, like if those move, then probably everything will, but at least those have space, you know, whereas Atom may not get that much higher, Dot may not get that much higher, Sol could just fail the high into the monthly level that it just missed at the top there. Yeah, Link, Near, and Doggy might have the potential to potentially go higher. And then yeah, to the downside again, you'll have to go back to previous streams, but here's a quick look. I think Near I actually wanted a touch lower. didn't really look at the long side, but yeah. So as again, like everything else, like we got the first bounce, and then we went deeper inside the zones, and in some cases, broke the zones. In other cases, didn't. Dot it did get the alert, but didn't quite hit the zone. So again, I still got an alert there on Dot. But again, on all of these now, you can look for if any of these daily demands are going to hold on a retest. Again, I'm running through it too fast, and I've kind of lost my flow because of the computer situation. But yeah, that's kind of the upshot of how I see the market at the moment. And let's finally see what Bitcoin has done. If it's gonna, again, famous last. I kind of so casually think, oh, I'll just go and look at this other chart, but then yeah, the computer crashes. I was going to see what Bitcoin is doing in my whilst I'm streaming. Back in the day, I used to be able to have Bitcoin open on the other screen while I was streaming. So yeah, zones have all just reappeared here as well. But yeah, I used to be able to have Bitcoin on my other screen while I was streaming and be able to watch it. But now I have to close that because God forbid I have that open, the whole computer crashes. So anyway, I think we got a new 30-minute supply on Ether. So Ether has actually now wicked down into this zone below. Into that's 4 hour. So that's actually would have been a really nice long entry if you were watching that. But a risky long entry given we have 4 hour supply on Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's now bounced up, but it's come back up and gone back up into 4 hour supply. But I did say that at the start of the stream, actually, that Ether had this 4 hour and 4 day level. It hasn't got down to the 4 day level, but it's gone down into 4 hour demand. So yeah, there you go. That's one entry I've given you on the stream. If you were bold enough to take it off that wick. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, these are just this is my lower time frame chart, which most people have seen before many times. So yeah, you can see the transparency of the entries, the 3 day on Ether that failed there, then this hourly that did give a bit of reaction, but again never broke demand. So again, you're looking for every time you look at when one of these zones hits, you're going, where is the nearest demand? And in this case, it had very clear 15-minute, 30-minute demand there, and until that breaks, this is still in an uptrend. So again, while that's happening, you can try and short retests up here, but this might happen because you are still running, this potentially would have been a retest short and you got that there anyway. You could try it again there and then you would have got stopped out. But again, it's noting this is still in an uptrend. And on what time frame do you look at? Again, now if we're in a 4 hour uptrend, we're holding 4 hour demand here. So this potentially is still going to make a new high. If you want to short this 30-minute, you can do that, but again, know that we're still in an uptrend until this 4 hour breaks. Then you kind of look for the downtrend to start forming. This would be a very aggressive short entry. You can do that on the basis, if you see a swing fail of these two highs, it comes back down, closes below on a 30-minute or a 15-minute candle, then you can maybe look for shorts. More viability in that trade given BTC has this 4 hour supply in here. But yeah, anyway, so I think I was going to show this earlier from the perspective, but anyway, I've been going for an hour and 45 now, so I'm going to run. I hope you enjoyed that. Sorry I can't be as decisive. I was going to go over some more alts as well, but yeah, it's been longer than I thought, so I might, again, maybe I'll just do an alt stream tomorrow because I'm just bored of doing Bitcoin at the moment, quite frankly. And alts are much more interesting. When you're getting the major zones hit, and then it gives you a lot more viable and entries and things like that, and a lot more actual trades to take than just randomly talking about Bitcoin like everybody else does. I did have this other alt layout as well. That I was just looking at the super strong ones just to try and get a judgment. So Siren was one of the ones that's been up here for ages. I was watching for a breakout, and actually then finally it made weekly supply. So I thought, well, let's look for a tentative short, even though it hasn't broken the range, but it's just running higher in that. Raven went all the way up to a 5-day supply inside the 3 month, and then also came higher than the retest. So I've now thought, right, if you can't beat them, join them. Let's try and do a long on daily demand there. Flock hit short alerts a while ago, as did White, but they're sort of taking their time breaking down. But all of these, again, you can just trade very nicely both directions. Syrup was a nice one, although I'm bitter at it right now because it didn't hit, so it just missed my long entry from today. But yeah, you know, you long entry on 3-day demand, short entry on daily supply, long entry on the retest of 12-hour demand down here, and then it's taken off. So you can trade all these things in both directions. You don't have to be so definitive that it has to go one way or the other. And then form is another similar one again. Like, is it? Don't know if these are going to have larger breakdowns or not. And again, long on 3-day demand, wicked inside it, short up on daily supply, long on 5-day demand. Hasn't got up to my 4 hours, it seems rejecting early on that. But yeah, these are much more interesting to look at, I think. Anyway, I think I'm gonna. Oh, looks like my camera is frozen. The end of the stream there. Anyway, we'll have to rewatch some of this and see what actually failed dismally there. Anyway, so yeah, I was just looking at some of the alts, but yeah, I'll try and do an alt stream tomorrow because that'll be significantly more interesting than the boredom of looking at Bitcoin at the moment. And yeah, I hope that was useful. Good to see my couple of avid followers are still watching. Please feel free to put through any requests. If you like this, please like and subscribe. And please feel free to follow my Telegram channel because then you'll get more updates and you can talk to me. And I hope everybody has a good evening. And also, I hope in the next month, at least, maybe sooner, I will have sorted out this computer situation. I won't be harping on about how shit my computer is every time I stream. So have a good evening, everybody.